Hi, my name is Monica Serena, and I do marketing for the Wm.T.Spaeder company. And this is a podcast about all different kinds of advances in construction. Today, we are interviewing Zach Haas, the Director of Business Development for Ekso Bionics. And this is a company that builds exoskeletons. So Zach, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in Ekso Bionics?
Yeah, absolutely. My background is more in the power tool and construction side of things, which is what made it a good fit for me to move down to Ekso Bionics a couple of years ago. I started developing power tools, sort of my first position out of school, and worked a lot with different trades and constructions, trying to improve on tools that existed for a while, finding ways to better a solution that was already being used, and working with one of the leading power tool manufacturers to bring those solutions to market. And when Ekso Bionics decided to move into the industrial space from the work they were already doing in healthcare and the military side, that was the customers they were targeting was a really good fit with my background. So I took a position down here at Ekso about 3.5 years ago, working in product management, and I really boiled that down to sort of voice of customer, being the conduit between what the customer needs and what we need to develop. And then not too long ago moved into a business development role to sort of take the next step at managing those relationships with our key industrial and construction partners.
Okay, so I know Ekso Bionics works on two different types of exoskeletons. We have the healthcare side and the construction side. Now, obviously, we're going to get into the construction side, but I'd like to find out a little bit more about the healthcare side.
Ekso Bionics started out of UC Berkeley here in California, and a lot of the early work was done in the healthcare industry, where we still do a bulk of our work, developing devices to assist people who are paralyzed to walk during the rehabilitation. So people who are paralyzed from stroke or spinal cord injury are in rehab, and the devices we make, like the Ekso GT, assist them and their physical therapist during that rehabilitation process to get them up and walking, promoting blood flow, organ function, and things like that. It's a really tremendous assistive device for that process. And while that device is much more complex, we were able to leverage a lot of the technology that's developed for that type of application to make simpler devices to provide assistance for fully able-bodied people, which is what we've started doing with our industrial products. Similar to the healthcare side, we also worked in various military projects to develop devices aimed at sort of creating a super soldier, devices that would help increase strength, stamina, speed, and sort of trying to enhance the human body that way. So that's sort of what exoskeletons are all about. Regardless of the application, we're looking to enhance the functionality of the person using the device, whether that's somebody who needs assistance walking or somebody who has full capabilities there but needs assistance taking the strain off of a certain joint or muscle group, like our device that helps alleviate strain from shoulders.
So I didn't see a lot on the website about the military usage. Is that classified?
There are pieces of it that are classified, but the main reason you don't see it on our website is because those are projects we're not working on anymore. That was some of the early work Ekso Bionics did was in that segment, and we've stepped away from that to focus on our healthcare business and on our industrial business. But it's exciting to talk about because we did do a lot of research in that space, and the things we learned there, just like the things we learn in healthcare and what we learn in making industrial exoskeletons, all sort of plays off one another, and we're able to leverage those learnings and lessons in the development of new products.
I saw on the website that there were two different types of exoskeletons you're developing for construction. There's the EksoVest and the EksoZeroG. Would you mind going into detail about each of those two different products?
Yeah, absolutely. And they both use exoskeleton technology, but the EksoVest actually is a wearable product and more officially an exoskeleton in the truest definition. But I'll start talking about the EksoZeroG a little bit because that was actually the first industrial product we came out with. And the EksoZeroG is a mechanical arm that's designed to lift heavy tools up to about 35 pounds and make those tools weightless. So really, really heavy tools like demolition hammers, grinders, rivet busters, tools that are designed technically to be used by one person and hoisted by hand, but are incredibly heavy. And that's before you hook up pneumatic air to them and start trying to break concrete with some of these tools. I mean, it's a very, very challenging tool for one person to manage. So much so that many of the times when we see them being used in the field without assistance, the way that they're being used is with two-person teams. One person chips concrete for 10 minutes while the other person sits there and rests, and then they swap. I mean, that's how draining the work is. So we developed the EksoZeroG initially with an early prototype as this mechanical arm attached to a full exoskeleton suit. So it started as a wearable product. And the idea was that you could sort of have this third arm attached to your hip. All that weight was transferred through the device to the ground, so the operator didn't feel the weight of the exoskeleton or the arm or the weight of the tool that it was holding. And they could walk around and use those tools as if they were weightless and really remove the strain from them. They really liked the benefit of that during our initial testing, but the suit itself was viewed as a little too cumbersome. So that's what led us to take a step back, sort of kind of realized we maybe needed a crawl before we walked sort of approach. And everybody really liked the functionality of the ZeroG arm. So we took that and made a different mount for it. We saw that a lot of those operators and construction workers were often doing that work from common platforms, standing in a scissor lift, standing on scaffolding. So we developed a mount that allowed you to attach the ZeroG arm, which is where sort of all the secret sauce is, if you will, attach that to the platform where the work is already being done and basically put the arm next to them and then still get the functionality of it. What you sacrifice there is the mobility of having it attached to you. But it's been really successful in certain industries. Probably top of the list is demolition, like I said, because of the heavy tools that are required to break concrete and how that work is done. One of the other things that came out of that research was people saying, hey, this is great, but it's the full body, the legs of the device that are sort of cumbersome to walk around a job site, which is, as you can appreciate, a very dynamic environment. It's changing every day. You don't always have the most secure footing. And could you get rid of that and still give us the upper body support? Well, we can, but you can't offer as much support. You can't lift as much weight if you don't have a full exoskeleton that transfers the load of that weight to the ground so that the worker isn't bearing all the weight themselves. But what we can do is develop a device to provide upper body support that's not designed to give you super strength, but maybe aimed at increasing endurance. And that's really what the EksoVest is, and that's where that was born out of, was this desire to have some upper body assistance from a smaller device that didn't transfer the load to the ground.
It supports you. So
it supports you, exactly.
The EksoVest supports you, and the EksoZeroG allows you to lift more. So how much more can you lift?
With the EksoZeroG, it provides lift assistance up to about 35 pounds, but it makes that tool completely weightless. What the EksoVest does is it provides lift assistance under each arm, and our instructions are not that it allows you to lift more. People say, how much more can I lift? How much heavier of a tool can I use now? And the answer is none. We don't want to make you super strong. You should only lift things with the EksoVest that you could lift unassisted, but what it does is increase your endurance, reduce your fatigue, reduce the likelihood of getting injury because you're reducing that fatigue and taking the strain off of the shoulders. So if you have that heavy, that in some cases it's a heavy tool, in some cases it's almost toolless work. Any work being done overhead, for example, electricians or pipe fitters working overhead, it can be a toolless job, but the shoulder still really gets sore because of the long duration or repetitive nature of that work. And the EksoVest takes that strain off your shoulder by almost creating an invisible shelf for your arms to rest. So as you raise your arms into the working position, you're not having to use your shoulder muscles as much to keep them up there. And the result is, after you're working all day, you feel a lot less sore because of the assistance you've been receiving.
So is it electrical or mechanical? Do you need a power source?
They're both mechanical, and that was an important decision point where what we call in exoskeleton industry a passive device. So there's energy in it for the vest. Both of them, there's energy that's stored in springs, but there's no electrical power to either device, which offers some distinct advantages. It's just a simpler device, so there's less to worry about maintaining and servicing there, and less opportunity for the electrical components that could break or wear out. It does limit you. There might be other things you can do with electrical devices, and something we plan to get into in the future. But we really found it was best to start with the simplest approach, and you can offer a lot of benefit from a purely mechanical device. So they're both fairly maintenance-free. Where there are bearings, those bearings are sealed. A lot of the service and maintenance is really just on replacing parts that may wear out over time, like the soft goods, the arm cuffs or something on the EksoVest, but really just keeping them clean and free of debris, because obviously the environments we're talking about using these in are a little different from the environments where our healthcare device is used. It's out on grungy job sites, and we know they're going to get beat up and dirty, and they're designed to handle all of that, but that's really what's required. You don't have to charge them. There are no batteries, nothing to plug in. It's just keeping it clean so that the mechanical aspects of it still function properly.
So while there aren't a lot of exoskeleton manufacturers, there is some competition. How do you differentiate yourself from the others?
There are some other devices out there that are providing similar upper body support with a passive mechanical only approach. Some of the things that we really think set us apart are the durability of our device. You're constantly trying to address a lot of different concerns. First and foremost, it's got to function. It's got to do the job you're trying to get it to do. But for example, if it's too heavy, an operator won't wear it. It doesn't matter how great it is. Similarly, if it's not durable enough, if it works great for a day, but you go to pick it up the following week and it's broken, it's going to get a pretty bad reputation early on. So we were doing a lot of work to balance those needs, and that was, a lot of that R&D up front went into that, taking prototypes out, collecting that voice of customer that I mentioned earlier to make sure we're not just designing a product we think is interesting in a vacuum here, but that we're actually designing the device that will help in the applications we're targeting. And that's what led us to the final production version of the EksoVest that we have now. It's light enough that it's comfortable to wear for long durations. It provides the type of assistance that is needed and benefits the worker for the overhead applications we're looking into. And it's durable enough to take the kind of beating that we know it's going to see day in and day out. It's just the nature of the job. Whether it's a power tool, a wrench, or an exoskeleton, when it's being used in these types of trades in all different types of weather conditions, it's going to see a lot of wear and tear, and it's got to be able to stand up to that.
So does the exoskeleton come in different sizes, or is there one size that's adjustable? Like if we bought one, could multiple workers use it? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. What the exoskeleton does is has customizable options to fit different size workers. So it's one single device, but we handle different sizes a few different ways. For example, the height adjustment is done on the single device. There's a post in the back that runs along your spine, and we can set that to different torso heights. And then to manage different size workers from arms and hip sizes, we have different soft goods, so different hip belts and arm cuffs that we slide on and off of the device to fit the worker. I've often kind of compared it to getting fit for football pads and before practice in high school kind of thing. You've got different components, and we measure. We have instructions in our manual for measuring each person. We sell it in two different configurations. We have a general configuration kit, and that includes all the sizes you need as well as all 4 spring levels, because there are 4 different levels of lift assistance you can install, and that can be used to fit any different size person, sort of in the 5th to 95th percentile of sizes, body sizes. And we generally recommend that for early use cases or demos or early trials, and that can be used to fit a smaller worker, larger worker, and moved around. And then what we see most companies do is purchase our specific worker device, which is just the set of components from within that kit that an individual would need. So if you were to try the demo for a couple of weeks and try it on different workers and realize that you had 10 operators or workers who wanted to use that device, you could then order a smaller version of the product for each one of those people by submitting their sizes and just getting the components that they need.
So I know the question burning on everyone's mind is, how much does it cost? You do have some pricing on the website, but I thought maybe you could go into that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, it's certainly affordable. I can tell you this, it's a lot more affordable than a shoulder surgery when you talk about the cost of that medical procedure, the time lost work, the time to rehab. And that's really sort of what we're trying to do, right, is get in front of that and prevent the injury rather than deal with it after the fact. Those 2 versions I mentioned, the general configuration kit has a list price of $7,000, and that's because it includes all those components and is a really good solution for trying it out on different people. And then once you've proven out your application and you know which workers need one, you can submit their sizes and order a specific worker kit just for them that has a list price of $4,000.
Well, it sounds like a fantastic product, lots of stuff on the horizon. What's next? What are the plans for the future?
Yeah, that's one thing we focus on pretty heavily here is sort of looking for the next product. It's no secret, right? We didn't get every single thing right about this product on the first go, which means there's a lot of opportunity to improve it. And what that would allow us to do is make it a better device for our customers who are already using the device in manufacturing and in construction, but also make some improvements to open up more applications. Continue to make it lighter weight, continue to keep durability as a focus for us, maybe offer more ways of providing assistance or expanding it to other joints beyond the shoulder. The general direction I see of exoskeletons for us is to continue to expand that line. Like I said, we're focused on shoulders now because that was sort of the highest the highest need and demand. But as we go out to see customers with that product, we get a lot of follow-up questions. Well, what are you doing for knees, for backs, for these other issues where we see ergonomic problems in the jobs that we do? So as the technology continues to improve, I think we'll see what we often see with technology is prices continue to come down. The devices like the EksoVest will become more available to more people. You know, when it becomes something that's hundreds of dollars and not thousands of dollars, granted that's a ways off, a lot more, that's accessible to a lot more people to try and use. And we'll continue to learn continue to use what we've learned in developing the EksoVest to make similar devices for those other joints. And I really see a future where it's not just professionals like those working in the skilled trades of construction who use it, but a future where consumers can purchase them for everyday tasks around their house, helping with chores. Anybody who does a lot of housework, yard work can tell you that can take its own toll on the body. It doesn't have to be a job that you're doing for a living. And we ultimately want to be able to develop those similar devices that help not just working individuals, but people with any task that put stress and strain on their joints.
Another thing is that the construction workforce appears to be shrinking in favor of people going to college, and there are less skilled workers coming out. So it appears that exoskeletons could help with that.
Absolutely, yeah. We look at it as it's not person versus machine. It's person versus machine versus person plus machine, and we're pretty strongly in the camp that person plus machine will always be greater than either one alone. And that you touched there on another trend that we're seeing, right? We see this exact same thing when we talk to the skilled trades. The average age of the worker in those trades is going up as people stay in the trades longer, and as fewer people go into those industries. So there's an increased demand to get more people into those industries, which things like exoskeletons will help when they see that they're being taken care of. And it can also help prevent injuries for those workers who've chosen to stay in their trade longer. You know, the body can only do so much, but a lot of people are forced to retire or change roles, not because they don't want to do the job anymore, but because their body is only capable of doing it. If we can provide assistance to them with an exoskeleton that allows them to work longer and only leave when they decide to, that makes for a much happier and healthier workforce.
Exactly. Well, that wraps things up for today. Thanks for joining us, Zach, and we'll see you all next time.